Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another video. As you guys already know, we had our first YCS of the WCQ season for 2024 already concluded. We already spoke about Unchained and Chimera in this channel. We spoke about a couple of other decks, and we spoke about like their position in the format. As of right now, as you guys already know, one of the decks I've been piloting for this entire format was Vanquish Soul. And even though Vanquish Soul didn't have a huge amount of representation as it was expected, it did make it to the finals. And not only did it make it to the finals, but the last final feature match that was streamed for the YCS involved Vanquish Soul. So, not only that, but they took game one with an inspired not only did they take game one, it was like almost a perfect game, like in Vanquish Soul's favor. Um, you can make the argument that Cesar, the opponent, the Vanquish player, could have maneuvered a way into playing uh, against Kamal and won the game. But there's a lot of variance in this game. There's a lot of things that happen in between duels, and out in the end, it just rolled into Kamal's favor. And the fact that this deck almost took out Kamal is just impressive because not only was Kamal on Purely, which is one of the more popular decks in the format, Kamal is like a really good player. We're talking about probably top 10 players in the TCG at the moment. But congrats to like both players. Congrats to everybody that made it later at the event. But I just want to talk about Vanquish Soul because Caesar was playing a variant that I spoke about a couple weeks back, but I didn't actually take into an event or took into testing. I did an updated list to my Vanquish Soul deck. And right now, I just want to experiment. Whenever I see a deck doing super well at an event, and it's a deck that I do have accessible, at least the tools for it, I do want to give it a shot. I do want to give a test. As of right now, at the time of this recording, there is no live deck profile of Caesar's deck. So this deck is not like net decked like card for card, but it is a concept very similar to his. And I just want to see if this is the right approach moving forward because seeing a tournament result like this kind of tells you that not only was he prepared for the format, but probably the deck was strong enough on its own to do a lot. There's nothing to take away from Cesar's teammates as well. Like they probably both did just as good with their matchups. But yeah, I'm rambling a little bit, so I'll just get to the deck profile and then I'll talk about like the stuff that I'm doing with the deck and the stuff that I kind of want to do moving forward. So we have 3 Rosin, 3 Madlove, 3 Burger, 1 Pluton, 1 Panthera, 1 Caesar. That's it for the Vanquishers. 3 Motorbike, 3 Wakauchi, Big Benkei, Gaia Booster. Triple Skullmeister, Triple Crow, Triple Ash, Korikara, Kaiju. Triple Sticker Soul, Double Small World, Rhoda, Talent, Dust, continue. Okay, so I guess I'll go with the extra deck first, and then we can do explanations like we always do in this channel. Rock, Nightmares, Access, Omega, Dweller, Exiton, Zodiacs, Guska, Dempsey, Sky Thunder. Okay, so I guess explanation time. 3 weeks ago, or a little under 3 weeks, I did make a video talking about how Dempsey just became really, really important in Vanquish Soul and in Rescue Ace. And if you can find an engine that can just facilitate the summon of that card while also raising the ceiling of the deck, this would just be like incredibly beneficial. And one of the engines is the Superheavy Samurai engine. So there are some caveats and there are some advantages of this over the Parallel Exceed version. As you guys already know, for the past couple of weeks, I was on the Parallel Exceed. If I were to pick a version right now, I'd say the Parallel Exceed version is a lot more comfortable for me, for a couple of reasons. However, I want to revisit talking about the Superheavy Samurai engine and the things that it can be done in the Vanquish deck itself, because this did make it to the finals of the YCS, as I mentioned prior. So for starters, this is a 1-card engine into Dempsey without your normal summon. And whenever you have an engine that can summon like your extra from your extra deck without your normal summon, you have to fear this engine because it can do a lot of crazy things. It can bait through boards. If everything resolves, it's just a super incredible blowout. But yeah, the main existence of this engine is to facilitate Dempsey, and Dempsey gets you to Rosin. So essentially, between the 3 Motorbike, the 3 Wakaushi, the 3 Rosin, and the Rhoda, Small World, and Staker Soul, like over 2/3 of your deck can get you to. Over 2/3 of your deck can get you to Rosin. And that's really, really important because Rosin is pretty much like the best card in the deck. If this card resolves, the ceiling of your deck is like significantly high. So just having an engine that can facilitate that with more copies is like very, very beneficial. Another really cool thing is that in the off chance you did open Rosin, something that this deck gives you, it gives you full access to your Pendulum Skill plus hand knowledge of your opponent. If you make Omega and you rip a card out of your opponent and you resolve it successfully, what's gonna end up happening is that not only is your opponent down a card, but you have full Pendulum Skills, and if you haven't used Rosin yet, you can just normal Rosin, and then just keep playing. And having access to your Pendulum Skills entirely, it's a really, really big deal. It makes it so this deck can OTK easier, which is something that Vanquish doesn't particularly do often. It makes it so if you open like Heavy Burger, for example, you have no way to tag it out. You can just summon it as well. Like it kind of just opens a lot of plays that like raise the ceiling. But what are the disadvantages? The big disadvantage of this engine is that you have to activate these before activating your spell and trap cards. And activating Wakaushi, it's like going second. Yeah, it can bait your opponent, but it's not really like the biggest threat for your opponent. If your opponent has like removal for it, then like they don't have to worry about this anymore. And then you're gonna have to rely on your normal summon or like other cards in order to keep playing. The other thing about this engine is that it loses to draw because part of your combo does involve you adding the Gaia booster, or if you use motorbike adding Wakaushi, and that really falls into draw. One of the reasons I was playing Vanquish in the first place was because of how resilient to draw the deck was already. So just eliminating that as an option for the deck just to raise its ceiling is something that it can be done. It can be considered. Um, However, it is very very risky if you already know that your opponent or like the player environment that you're playing already has like common counters to these. Um, so now that I brought up like two disadvantages with with this strategy, I guess another disadvantage I can bring up is that you ideally cannot play a lot of spell cards if you're playing an engine like this. So it takes away from you playing like stuff like for example, as you noticed, I'm not playing Thrust anymore. There's no Trinity Burst either. Like I'm missing out on certain cards that I would have loved in the main deck, just to make sure that the deck was 40, and I could use this engine because this engine is pretty much like 8 cards. Like it takes a good amount of your main deck. Like it takes above 24%, which is not really ideal. Um, so what are the advantages now? So one of the advantages is uh, in past Vanquish Soul builds, at least like the more pure ones, they lacked a good amount of Earth monsters, and with this engine, you have a good amount. So it makes it so Caesar and Panthera can resolve easier. Uh, as you noticed in my build, I lowered Panthera and Caesar both to 1. The main reason you were playing at multiples is because you were lacking Earth monsters in the deck. So just having searchable Earth monsters or Earth monsters that work as part of your strategy was super ideal. The disadvantage is that, like for example, Caesar is a brick on its own. Like it doesn't start any plays. Same thing with Heavy Borger. So playing more copies of this just means that you're risking yourself bricking more. Panthera is really good because it is a Vanquish that you can summon without your normal summon. But without stuff like Parallel Exceed, you really don't need Panthera like as much, especially since you have more Earth monsters. So I guess that's like one huge advantage that this has. Wakaushi being a dark also helps with your engine. So like yeah, as you already know, my previous build only had DD Crow as the dark monster, besides the Vanquishers. So now between DD Crow, and I guess we can talk about Skullmeister now. Between DD Crow, Skullmeister, and Wakauchi, as well as the Vanquish, you have over 10 dark monsters, so that's a really hefty amount that can work with your strategy. Just because some of your more oppressive or more useful cards in the Vanquish archetype do rely on dark monsters. Um, so that's it for like that part of the explanation. I guess we can talk about Skullmeister now. Since since Unchained overperformed this weekend, I think people are going to have to side against the deck more because you're probably going to see it more often, more than the other decks in the format. And Skullmeister is a card that really is a good check against them. Not only that, but it is a dark monster and it's level 4. So it also helps with making King Dempsey. It also helps with making Omega. Um, it like you can make like the other new XYCs that I put in the deck. And this also goes on tandem with the Unchained explanation. With Unchained being more popular, this card is a lot more viable. And not only does it hurt the Unchained matchup, it also hurts Chimera to some extent. It also, unironically, it also works against Manadium as well. Um, so having really good common counters to that strategy as of right now kind of warrants utility behind this card. Um, in Caesar's build, he's playing the Bestials instead of the Crow. And the Bestials are kind of better in this deck because he does play Chaos Angel. Um, and you can make Chaos Angel with this, Dr. Madlove, the Wakauchi. All of them paired with a Bestial can just make a Chaos Angel. And Chaos Angel is really good this format. Um, so yeah, like in the future, this might become bestial monsters, but the fact that this card like helps you in the Pearly matchup, as I brought it up multiple times. This also helps against like stuff that you want off the graveyard that is not particularly a monster or a dark monster, light monster specifically. Stuff like Chayama, the Unchained, is also helpful with this card. You can also snipe Chimera Fusion from the graveyard with this. You can also like banish stuff like even if your opponent has nothing in the graveyard. I mean nothing on the board, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't say that there's an incorrect option. I'd say like it's all up for experimentation, but as of right now, these are probably like my top choices alongside Ash, Kurikara, and I put the Kaiju in. If you notice, there's no impulse. The number one reason is because again I lended the card. They haven't gave it back to me yet. But if there's a second reason, is that like there's not going to be many instances where impulse would be as effective as if it was a month ago. Um, like if you play against Purely and they know that you're activating that, they're gonna try like they know about that card. They're just gonna play around it. Um, if you face Unchained, the only monster, one of the only monsters that activates on the board besides Jama is like Tour Guide, and Tour Guide also doesn't work with the Rescue Ace. Just opening Fire Attacker as a brick is also like not ideal. That has happened to me a lot of times. Um, but yeah, that's it for these. I think the explanation behind these is kind of obvious. Um, I do want to play a third Small World. That is another option. The thing about Small World is that if you have spare samurais in your hand, or you draw a samurai with already cards in graveyard, you can just get rid of them with the Small World and just try to grab Rasen or whatever else you need. Cesar was playing TC Boo in the main deck. That is one other option that you can do. I'm not opposed to it. With less copies of Pantera, and without their impulse, you can also make the argument of playing Fenrir in this build, which is another thing that I'd say is a possibility. The only reason I haven't put Fenrir in is because I want to keep the deck at 40. You can make the argument of maybe like cutting one Crow and cutting one Meister, like just as examples. But as of right now, I think I'm comfortable like just sticking it without 240 without Fenrir. Um, the other purpose of Fenrir is that just another Earth monster, and you already have enough of those with the Samurais. Um, but yeah, I think I covered pretty much everything. I'm not showing a side deck because again, this is a very experimental build. Your side deck is just going to be like catered for the format. One of the staple cards in your side deck that you should be playing is Tisibu. Like there can be only one. Dimensional Barrier, I'd say, is like another one that you should be playing. Droll and Lockbird is another card that I think you should be playing. There was Ghost Bell here in the main. Is currently in the side. That one is debatable, but Ghost Bell is another card that also works against Unchained. So it's another ideal card that you can think of. But yeah, I'm going to test out Vanquish Soul like with this build, maybe tinker around with the ratios or with other tech cards that you can be playing in the main deck. And then I'll do another analysis whether or not it's still superior to the Parallel Exceed engine, and not just use the basis of just making it to the finals of the YCS as like the good hypothesis that reaches the cusp of whatever concluded playing this version. Um, I hope you got, enjoyed the video. I hope you found it very informative. I hope you found it to your liking. If you're a Vanquish Soul player and you're playing this engine, let me know how it's working out for you, because as of right now, the only thing I have going for me is like random dueling book replays and Caesar's like finals game with it. But yeah, until then, keep practicing and keep dueling.